claim that temperatures increase 600 to 1,000. The other studies I saw show 800 to 1,400 years. CO2 doesn't do anything. Temperature increases for a full 1,000 years, 1,400 years, before CO2 even starts to increase. That's like saying the water's boiling today, and 1,400 years later I turn the burner on. That's what they're saying. Their conclusion is, does this prove global warming? No. You can click on this and go get their explanation. You do this kind of study in any other science, go talk to your statistics professor about this. Don't tell him you're working on global warming. Just tell him this is your conclusion. Tell him that the cause occurred 1,400 years in the future, and the effect occurred today. He's going to say F minus. Okay? The moment you tell him it's global warming, oh, it starts to make sense. Okay? Something in the water. This is their data, though. They will tell you temperature increases 1,400 years before CO2. Temperature drives CO2. CO2 does not drive temperature. And if you think through natural biology, that makes sense. You have to warm the earth before things start to grow. Right? Things don't live in the Arctic. They live in the tropical zone. Once they start to live, they start producing CO2. Okay? Once again, I encourage anyone to strip the fact that this is global warming away, take this kind of data and conclusions to a statistics professor or any person in the hard sciences and tell them this is what you're reaching and watch their reaction. They've got the horse in front of the carriage. They got things backwards. Okay? Once again, like I said, just take this to a statistics professor. They would have a heyday with it. Here's another one, Woods Hole research. Okay? What I did with this one, this is their data. Okay? This is CO2. And as you can see, the slope of the CO2 changes dramatically. Now, anytime you're doing any kind of a normal research project and you see something dramatically change like that, you immediately scratch your head. If you're doing research on a drug and all of a sudden you start seeing the blood pressure or something on a patient shoot through the roof, you say, well, something's different here. Right? Well, sure enough, they're using the different data samples. So their data samples have totally different characteristics. But even using their own charts, the CO2, the slope of the CO2 increase is rapidly increasing versus this. So if the CO2 is rapidly increasing and it's causing temperature to increase, you'd expect temperature to rapidly start increasing also. Well, this period, this is the slope of the temperature during this period. I just simply did a parallel shift to this other red one. The slope during these two periods are essentially the same for the temperature. But more importantly, during this period of rapid increase of CO2, temperatures actually fell between 1940 and 1980. If anything, it's a weak correlation, certainly not very strong. Okay? But once again, you have changes of rates. Not only changes of level, changes of rates of increase. That's huge. But the temperature doesn't change at all. Okay? We the sheep. There's a consensus out there. Who's been told there's a consensus? I just came from a lecture that they drove home the message. There's a consensus. Did anyone go to that thing a little bit ago when they attacked global warming skeptics like myself? It was pretty interesting.
I believe the figure was 99% of the climate scientists.
Yes. Bottom line is there's no one out there who disagrees with this stuff. Yeah. Well, I tell you one thing, if they do agree with that kind of science, we got some real problems. Don't ever buy a drug created by global scientists, I'll tell you that. Okay? Al Gore says it. 0. People disagree with this stuff, right? This is from his book. Okay? He makes a case. If you disagree with him, you're way off. Okay? I don't make an argument if you agree with him. Go back to Science 101. Okay? Here's my argument. There's 0 Nobel Prizes given for global warming. Okay? The consensus is just a complete 180 degrees from where it was just 30 years ago. Within my lifetime, I saw the entire paradigm shift from one end of the spectrum to the other. I was living in an igloo hut one day, I'm living in the tropical zone the next. In his movie, who's seen Inconvenient Truth? Remember when he mocks the scientific consensus about the planets? Right? He mocks the scientific consensus twice. He used to say, well, they used to say smoking was good for you. And he makes a mocking about the scientific consensus with the that the continents were never connected. So even he doesn't put a lot of faith in the scientific consensus unless it agrees with him. Okay? And once again, within my very own time period. And last of all, that's not how you reach the science. You don't reach the truth just because everyone agrees with you. Back in 1492, if I would have said, how many people think, or how many scientists out there think that the Earth is flat? Everybody would raise their hand. That doesn't make the Earth flat. It just makes them not very smart. Okay? Well, today everyone's agreeing that there's global warming. Okay, this comes from a quote from one of these basically scientific skeptics out there. Also, in scientific discussion, sometimes the sentiment of the generally accepted view of the scientific community is heard as if verification or falsification of the scientific hypothesis is a matter of my majority vote. That's not how you reach the truth. A derogatory statement. He also points out that anybody who disagrees with the global warming scientists, he's basically saying, get ready, they're going to attack you. Derogatory statements about a person's scientific reputation are least helpful. He's been through the ringer. He knows what happens when you speak out against the herd. He basically calls it authority through the majority. Okay? Here's some more quotes. This is from, I'm not even trying to pronounce his name. It's big U. Okay? Once again, you can click on this, go to research. This is how he, how I'm showing you all the data, and I'm just showing you the problems that I see. Well, he did the same thing. He basically, the ice samples are based on fudged data. I don't know what fudged data is, but it doesn't sound good to me. And ignorance of the physical process of glacial ice formation. That's as close to a smackdown as you're going to get in the scientific community. When they start using terms like that, look out. From its very beginning, the hypothesis of anthropogenic greenhouse warming was tainted with a biased selection of data, which is what I pointed to, ad hoc assumptions that were not verified experimentally, and one-sided interpretations. This is someone else's conclusion, but I think from what I just showed you, you would probably reach the same conclusion. I don't have a PhD after my name, though. Okay? Here's another one. When they're talking about this global consensus, well, this comes from the land of Ward Churchill. Something's wrong with my fonts on this projector for some reason. Okay? But if you're out in Colorado and you start disagreeing with global warming, you got to think this guy's pretty brave or something's up. But this is a Colorado State professor disputes global warming as human cause. This was just recently. Once again, you can click on it. Global warming is happening, but humans are not the cause. One of the nation's top experts on hurricanes said Monday morning, Bill Gray, he basically says that it's not due to global warming. Not due to man. Man-induced global warming is a fear perpetuated by the media and scientists who are trying to get federal grants. I think we're coming out of the little ice age, which is what he's pointing out, which is what, when you look at the chart, that's what we're doing. And warming is due to changes in the ocean circulation patterns due to salinity variations. There's another possible cause of global warming that you never hear about. Okay. Here are just some more things. I basically just get the CD, go click on it. In 1998, 17,000 scientists, 6 of whom are Nobel laureates, signed the Oregon Petition, which declared in part, there's no convincing scientific evidence that human release of greenhouse gases is causing or will in the foreseeable future cause catastrophic heating of the Earth. Okay? Their consensus seemed to have forgotten 17,000 people. Okay? Even the French have joined in. This is just this week. October 17, 2006. Decorated scientist defects from belief in global warming. Caps a year of vindication for skeptics. All right. Okay? He addresses Al Gore's Kilimanjaro. He points out over here that the Al Gore wrote that the cause of climate change remains unknown and pointed out that Kilimanjaro is not losing snow due to global warming, but to a local land use and precipitation changes. So he basically does what I'm doing. He takes one of Al Gore's charts and said, that's bogus anyways. Okay? Now let's go take a look, and we're going to back up to Science 101. We're just going to take a look at the